Musk thought that his very presence would turn the fetid water into fine wine, since he had long considered himself more than just a man, but an icon, and on some days, a god. Good luck with that, I thought to myself as we hung up. I moved on, calling other C-suiters for comment. The guest list had been compiled by contrarian investor and persistent irritant Peter Thiel, who had made a fortune betting on visionary technologies. Still, his latest vision for the future was his most outlandish, backing Trump. It was certainly a bold bet by Thiel, and it had panned out magnificently. I didn't even attempt to contact Thiel. The entrepreneur had long since stopped communicating with me, especially after a lengthy video interview in 2007, where we agreed on exactly nothing. After the camera stopped rolling, I pressed Thiel on the need to ensure gays had the same rights to be married and have children as straight people. Both Thiel and I are famously gay, but he argued that gays should not get, quote, special rights, even as I asserted that we had no rights at all. We had exactly nothing in common. And while we would both go on to get married and have kids, me twice, it was probably a good instinct on his part to avoid me. But I talked with the other invitees, a few of whom said that Thiel had pressured them to get on board. Others welcomed Thiel's invite and insisted Trump did not mean the terrible things he had said repeatedly on the stump. Another tried to convince me that meeting Trump, quote, was a public show of truce. Like Musk, many insisted they would bring up substantive issues except behind closed doors. Look, this is obviously a circus, said one person to me. Everyone in tech just wants to be invisible right now when it comes to this administration, but has to participate since we've done it before. The sticky part was that many of the tech leaders, including Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg, who had been a prominent supporter of Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, had openly opposed Trump's stances during the campaign. Almost all of them had pushed back when Trump called for a, quote, total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States and announced plans to severely limit immigration. In fact, two of the invitees, Musk and Microsoft's new CEO, Satya Nadella, were immigrants themselves, and most had privately derided Trump to me as a buffoon. This kind of casual hypocrisy had become increasingly common over the decades I had covered Silicon Valley's elite. Over that time, I watched founders transform from young, idealistic strivers in a scrappy upstart industry into leaders of some of America's largest and most influential businesses. And while there were exceptions, the richer and more powerful people grew, the more compromised they became, wrapping themselves in expensive cashmere batting until the genuine person fell deep inside a cocoon of comfort and privilege where no unpleasantness intruded. When people get really rich, they seem to attract legions of enablers who lick them up and down all day. Many of these billionaires had then started to think of this fawning as reality, where suddenly everything that comes out of their mouths is golden. History gets rewritten as hagiography. But if you knew them in the before times and have some prior knowledge of their original selves, you either become an asset, truth-teller, or a threat, truth-teller, to them. Still, I hoped even they had some limits and there was a way to view the meeting as an opportunity, an opening to voice one's opinion. I advised people who called me back to make a strong public joint statement going into the meeting on key values and issues important to tech and its employees. Isn't that the point of democracy, I urged one CEO? Let the public know you're not going to Trump Tower to bend the knee to the king, but to stand up to a bully. You can resist Trump's stances against immigrants because it is immigrants who built America and immigrants who most definitely built tech. You can defend science because climate change is a big threat and tech can be a crucial part of fixing it. You can insist we invest in critical technologies that point the way to revolutions in things like health and transportation and not get bogged down in politics. Admittedly, I was monologuing. Even though I'd started out as a reporter, I had shifted into an analyst and sometimes an advocate. Increasingly, I used my extensive contact list to offer my honest opinion not just to readers, but to these increasingly clownish billionaires. My advice, of course, was completely ignored. These famed, quote, disruptors accepted Trump's invitation with no conditions. They gave up their dignity for nothing. Hewlett-Packard's Meg Whitman, whom I had tangled with over her opposition to gay marriage when she ran for governor, a stance she later recanted, was a rare exception and was therefore not in the meeting, despite being a staunch